Hi. Hi, everybody. Hello and welcome. Bienvenue. Folcha. We're here at the Wheel Club in West End, Montreal, Canada, on a chilly, sunny November afternoon for a one-of-a-kind event, a cultural encounter in words and music. I'm Kathleen Fee, Artistic Director of Festival Bloomsday Montreal, and before getting any further into today's event featuring the Irish and French cultures in Quebec, we'd like to acknowledge that we are based on the unceded Indigenous territory of Diondeage, I practiced that, but I screwed it up anyway, and that the Ganyagahaga Mohawk Nation is the custodian of these lands and waters. This is our festival's 10th anniversary year, and our theme has been Origins, looking back and looking forward. Thanks. Today's readings are from a tale originating in 1847, the time of the Great Potato Famine in Ireland that saw starvation and outmigration on an enormous scale. The repercussions were still very present in Joyce's day. He had his main character in Ulysses, Leopold Bloom, go about his odyssey with a shriveled potato in his trouser pocket. In this saga, a young famine orphan, baptized Fionnuala O'Brennan, is one of the almost 50,000 Irish to land on the shores of Quebec and eventually make her mark on French Canada. Interestingly, this year's Scotiabank Giller Prize winner, What Strange Paradise by Omar El Akkad, is also the tale of a child refugee, exploring what it means to set sail in search of the most basic prerequisites of a life: safety, shelter, and dignity. A tale as old as time, all over the news today. The excerpts we'll hear today are from a remarkable saga penned by prolific author and playwright Suzanne Aubry and translated by Martina Branagan, all accompanied by music from Jonathan Moorman and Sean Dager of the Swindlers. Suzanne graduated from Canada's National Theatre School in playwriting and soon made her name in the thriving television scene here in Quebec. She has written for some of the most popular long-running series, such as La Maison des Chênes, 403 episodes, as well as standalone dramas and comedies. She's published numerous novels and, of course, written for her first love, the stage. She is the president of the Quebec Writers' Union. Her theatrical vision and imagination, her gift for conjuring fascinating characters and engaging dialogue are on full display in her multi-volume saga, Fanette, that we're presenting today. Published by Les Éditions Libre Expression, the 7-volume series has sold over 100,000 copies. An 8th came out earlier this year, and a 9th and possibly final volume is just around the corner. PR and marketing specialist and translator Martina Branagan has translated the first 2 volumes and will be reading from her translation today. Martina was born and educated in Ireland and the UK. She holds a BA from Trinity College Dublin, an MA from St. Patrick's College Maynooth, and a postgraduate diploma in marketing. She is currently the editor of Nuacht, the newsletter of the St. Patrick's Society of Montreal. Jonathan and Sean are 2 of the 5 Swindlers. We felt any more Swindlers in the room for this reading might steal the show. An enormously talented group of experienced musicians, they're an acoustic folk band who play a variety of styles, including Celtic, which we'll be enjoying today. Suzanne has brought some of her books for sale in French for $20. They're over on the table over there. The books in English are available online as ebooks. And now after the reading, which will be an hour and 15 minutes or so, we'll take a 15-minute break, let everybody here get another drink, and people at home do whatever they want to do, and then come back for an informal chat with our artists. Those of you who are on Instagram will be able to type in questions, and the same thing for people who are on YouTube. So we're looking forward to lots of questions so that we can have a very lively discussion here with Suzanne, Martina, and the Swindlers. And now it's time. Fanette. with excerpts read in the original French by author Suzanne Aubry and in English and Irish by translator Martina Branagan. À vous, mesdames.
That's beautiful. So the first excerpt that we'll do today is from Chapter 5, Volume 1, and it's 1847. The O'Brennan family head to the port of Cork, where a ship will take them to Quebec City. So here we go. The O'Brennans arrived in Cork City, east of Skibbereen, followed by a long procession of families who'd also decided to set sail for America. On the way, they'd passed whole villages devastated by the food shortage. Women in rags swooped onto the road and offered them money to buy food. Money was not lacking in the country. The problem was that there was no more food for sale. In the village of Clonakilty, Fionnuala noticed members of an entire family sitting on the balcony of a charming wooden house, painted in bright yellow, with spruce green shutters. She waved to them and then noticed that no one was moving. Awami, an bhfuil siad ina gullah? Mommy, are they sleeping? Maureen looked in that direction. She put a hand over her mouth, her eyes open wide with horror. Then she covered Fanette's eyes, whispering, "Of course they're sleeping." They were all dead. Every last one of them. A tall young man with a pleasant face and blonde hair lay among them, eyes wide open facing the sky. No one dared to go near the corpses to give them a decent burial for fear of the disease. In another village, an ageless, bloodshot-eyed man, trembling with fever, threw himself at their cart, begging them to give him some water. Ian ordered the man to remain where he was and then threw him a hip flask half full of water. Maureen feebly protested. Drinking water was precious, and they'd almost none left. Ian shrugged his shoulders. The man was not long for this world. They might as well soften his last moments. While passing the cemetery, they saw men carry a coffin, open it, unload a corpse into a communal grave, and put the empty coffin back on a little cart. Only in Ireland, hinged coffins have been invented, making them reusable over and over again.
Les O'Brennan arrivèrent dans la ville de Cork, à l'est de Skibbereen, suivis d'une longue procession de familles qui avaient décidé, elles aussi, de s'embarquer pour l'Amérique. En chemin, ils avaient croisé des villages entiers dévastés par la disette. Des femmes en haillons se jetaient sur la route et leur tendaient de l'argent pour acheter de la nourriture. L'argent ne manquait pas au pays. Le problème était qu'il n'y avait plus de nourriture à vendre. Au village de Clonakilty, Fionnuala aperçut les membres d'une famille entière installée sur le balcon d'une coquette maison en bois, peinte en jaune clair, et dont les volets étaient d'un vert pimpant. Elle leur envoya la main, mais se rendit compte que personne ne bougeait. « Maman, est-ce qu'ils dorment? » Maureen regarda dans cette direction. Elle mit une main sur sa bouche, les yeux écarquillés d'horreur, puis elle couvrit les yeux de la petite en murmurant « Bien sûr qu'ils dorment ». Ils étaient tous morts, du premier au dernier. Un jeune homme de bonne taille, au visage avenant et aux cheveux blonds, gisait parmi eux, les yeux grands ouverts, tournés vers le ciel. Personne n'osait s'approcher des corps pour leur donner une sépulture décente, par crainte de la contagion. Dans un autre village, un homme sans âge, tremblant de fièvre et les yeux injectés de sang, se jeta sur leur carriole, les suppliant de lui donner un peu d'eau. Ian ordonna à l'homme de rester là où il était, puis jeta une gourde à moitié remplie d'eau. Maureen protesta faiblement. L'eau potable était précieuse. Il ne leur en restait presque plus. Ian haussa les épaules. Cet homme n'en avait plus pour longtemps. Aussi bien adoucir ces derniers moments. En passant devant le cimetière, ils virent des hommes transporter un cercueil, l'ouvrir, décharger un corps dans une fosse commune et remettre le cercueil vide dans une charrette. C'est sûrement en Irlande que les cercueils munis de gonds qui permettent de les réutiliser à volonté furent inventés, se dit Ian, submergé par un sentiment d'horreur et d'impuissance.
Ah, Father dear, and I often hear you speak of Erin's Isle. Her lofty hills, her valleys green, her mountains rude and wide. They say she is a lovely land, wherein a saint might dwell. So why did you abandon her? The reason to me tell. Ah, son, I loved my native land with energy and pride, till a blight came o'er the prairies. My sheep, my cattle died. My rent and taxes went unpaid. I could not them redeem. And that's the cruel reason why I left old Skibbereen. Well do I remember now that bleak December day, when the landlord and the sheriff came to take us all away. They set my roof on fire with their cursed English spleen. I bid a sigh and bade goodbye to dear old Skibbereen. And your mother too, God rest her soul, fell on the stony ground. She fainted in her anguish for the desolation round. She never rose, but passed away from life to a mortal dream. She found a quiet grave, me boy, in dear old Skibbereen. Old and feeble was your frame. I could not leave you with my friends, for you bore your father's name. I wrapped you in my coat of mail in the depths of night unseen. I heaved a sigh and bade goodbye to dear old Skibbereen. Ah, Father dear, the day will come when in answer to the call All Irish men of freedom stern will rally one and all. I'll be the man to lead the band beneath the flag of green, and loud and clear we'll raise the cheer, revenge for Skibbereen.
Our second excerpt is from chapter 5, volume 1. The family is on board the Rodina and the travel conditions are appalling. It had been a week since the Rodina had left Cork Harbour. None of Thomas Flanagan's promises had materialised. The food consisted of a disgusting gruel in which tiny pieces of greyish bacon floated. The nights were cold, even in June. The boat's hull was not perfectly watertight, and seawater seeped through, soaking their clothes and freezing their bones. Stronger winds had whipped up in the last 2 days, and waves beat at the hull hard and fast. Most of the passengers were seasick and vomited in bowls they did not have the strength to empty. Ian did everything in his power to make the crossing smoother for Maureen, Ada, and Helena. He made a fan with a piece of linen and waved it in front of their faces to refresh them during the day when the sun beat down too hard and the heat in the hold became unbearable. In the evening, he slept near them to keep them warm. Maureen continued to breastfeed her baby, but she anxiously noticed that Ada was losing weight. Arthur and Sean sometimes managed to slip to the captain's cabin and pinch a chunk of bread or a sausage without getting caught. They crumbled the bread and tried to give some to Ada, like feeding a bird, but she turned her head away, crying. On the 8th night, a violent storm blew in. The vessel lurched from side to side. Lying on her bunk, her eyes wide open, Fionnuala heard the flapping of the sails, the creaking of the hoists, and the sailors shouting. Thunder roared. Amanda woke abruptly and instinctively turned her head towards her little sister and saw that she was not sleeping. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "I'm not afraid," lied Fionnuala.
Il y avait une semaine que le Rodina avait quitté le port de Cork. Aucune des promesses de Thomas Flanagan ne s'était matérialisée. La nourriture consistait en un brouet infect où flottaient parfois de minuscules morceaux de lard grisâtre. Les nuits étaient froides, même en juin. La coque du bateau n'était pas parfaitement étanche et de l'eau finissait par s'infiltrer, mouillant les vêtements et glaçant les eaux. Des vents plus puissants s'étaient levés depuis 2 jours et des vagues frappaient dru la coque. La plupart des passagers avaient le mal de mer et vomissaient dans des écuelles qu'ils n'avaient pas toujours la force de vider. Ian faisait tout en son pouvoir pour adoucir la traversée à Maureen, Ada et Helena. Il avait fabriqué un éventail avec un morceau de toile et l'agitait devant leur visage pour les rafraîchir le jour quand le soleil tapait trop dur et que la chaleur dans la cale devenait intolérable. Le soir, il se couchait près d'elle pour les réchauffer. Maureen continuait de donner le sein à son bébé, mais elle constatait avec inquiétude qu'Ada perdait du poids. Arthur et Sean réussissaient parfois à se glisser jusqu'à la cabine du capitaine et subtilisaient un quignon de pain ou un saucisson sans se faire pincer. Ils émiettaient le pain et tentaient d'en donner à Ada, comme on nourrit un oiseau, mais elle détournait la tête en pleurant. La 8e nuit, un violent orage éclata. Le navire tanguait d'un côté à l'autre. Fionnuala, étendue sur sa couchette, les yeux grands ouverts, entendait le claquement des voiles, le grincement des palans et les cris des matelots. Le tonnerre éclata. Amanda se réveilla brusquement, tourna instinctivement la tête vers sa petite sœur et vit qu'elle ne dormait pas. « N'aie pas peur, chuchota-t-elle. « Je n'ai pas peur, mentit Fionnuala.
The first case of typhoid fever broke out 3 weeks into the crossing. There was a doctor on board, Dr. Philpott, but he spent more of his time at Captain Irwin's table than taking care of the passengers. He eventually resigned himself to going down to the hold to examine the sick patient, escorted by 2 sinister-looking sailors. The passenger in question, a man in his 60s, was stretched out on a bunk a few feet from the O'Brennans. His wife, a scarf on her head, was holding his hand, her face anxious. Dr. Philpott felt the patient's abnormally swollen abdomen. The man groaned in pain. His tongue was chalky. The woman looked worriedly at the doctor. "Will he be all right?" she murmured. The doctor nodded. "Your husband is quite sick." In truth, the doctor knew the poor man had contracted typhoid fever, but he did not wish to frighten the other passengers. He stood up, took the 2 sailors aside and spoke to them under his breath. "Bring him up on deck. He's dying." Sure enough, the man died the next day. At dawn the next day, Maureen was preparing to breastfeed Ada when she noticed her child was no longer moving. Her little face was pale and frozen. She let out a stifled cry and awakened Ian, who was sleeping beside her. On seeing the look of panic in his wife's eyes, he immediately understood that something was wrong. She started to rub the baby's back. "Ada, muscle mastor. Ada, wake up, love." Ian leaned over Ada and placed his big hand in front of her mouth. Nothing, not a breath. He started to cry big, silent sobs. Fionnuala woke up, saw her father shaken with tears and her mother rocking Ada, murmuring her name unceasingly. Without thinking, Amanda took Fionnuala in her arms and carried her to the hatchway. Chilly winds from the north swept the bridge, making the sails flap. Amanda, holding her little sister tightly, closed her eyes and deeply breathed in the sea air. The smell of iodine masked the putrid fumes of death and illness that had swept the entire vessel. Amanda guided Fionnuala to the back of the boat, firmly holding her little hand. Her red mane of hair ruffled in the wind. The quarterdeck's bell announced a change of watch, and sleepy-eyed sailors with tousled hair emerged from a hatchway under orders from the lieutenant of the watch. A helmsman in a tunic, his cap askew on his ear, his eyes riveted on the shore, firmly held the helm. He lightly touched his cap with his finger to salute Amanda. The sun barely filtered through the dissipating fog, and the mainsail formed a giant white square which stood out against the shadows of the rigging. Fionnuala started to cry. "Ada." Amanda pointed to a seagull appearing as a white spot on the ashen sky. "Ta Ada snaflash. Ada is in heaven."
Un premier cas de fièvre typhoïde se déclarant après 3 semaines de traversée. Il y avait un médecin à bord, le docteur Philpott, mais il passait plus de temps à la table du capitaine Irwin qu'à soigner ses patients. Il finit par se résigner à descendre dans la cale pour examiner le passager malade, escorté par 2 matelots à la mine patibulaire. Le passager en question, un homme d'une 60aine d'années, était étendu sur une couchette à quelques pieds des O'Brennan. Une femme portant un fichu sur la tête lui tenait la main, le visage anxieux. Le docteur Philpott lui palpa l'abdomen anormalement gonflé. L'homme poussa un gémissement de douleur, sa langue était blanchâtre. La femme leva des yeux angoissés vers le médecin. « Will he be all right? » murmura-t-elle. Le médecin hocha la tête. « Your husband is quite sick. » En vérité, le médecin savait que le pauvre homme était atteint de fièvre typhoïde, mais il ne voulait pas effrayer les autres passagers. Le lendemain, à l'aube, Maureen s'apprêtait à donner le sein à Ada quand elle se rendit compte que son enfant ne bougeait plus. Son petit visage était pâle et glacé. Elle poussa un cri étouffé. Ian, qui dormait à côté d'elle, se réveilla. Il comprit tout de suite que quelque chose n'allait pas en voyant la lueur de panique dans les yeux de sa femme qui se mit à frotter le dos du bébé. « Ada, Ada, réveille-toi, ma petite fille. » Ian se pencha sur Ada, plaça sa grande main devant sa bouche. Rien, pas un souffle. Il se mit à pleurer, à gros sanglots silencieux. Fionnuala se réveilla à son tour, vit son père secoué de pleurs, sa mère qui murmurait sans cesse le prénom d'Ada en la berçant. Sans réfléchir, Amanda prit Fionnuala dans ses bras et l'entraîna vers l'écoutille. Des vents frisquets venant du nord balayaient le pont et faisaient claquer les voiles. Amanda, tenant sa petite sœur serrée contre elle, ferma les yeux et respira l'air marin à plein poumon. L'odeur d'iode couvrait les miasmes de maladie et de mort qui avaient envahi tout le navire. Amanda se rendit à l'arrière du bateau, tenant la petite main de Fionnuala très très fort dans la sienne. Sa crinière rousse flottait au vent. La grande cloche de la dunette annonça un changement de quart. Des marins, les yeux ensommeillés et les cheveux hirsutes, sortirent par une écoutille sous les ordres du lieutenant de quart. Le soleil perçait à peine le brouillard qui commençait à s'effilocher. La grand voile formait un immense carré blanc découpé par les ombres des cordages. Fionnuala se mit à pleurer. « Ada !» Amanda lui montra un goéland qui faisait une tache blanche sur le ciel cendré. Ada est au ciel.
Our next excerpt is from Chapter 17, Volume 1. The two sisters, Fanette and Amanda, have become orphans, and after their stay at the quarantine station at Gros-Isle, they are adopted by the Cloutiers, a family of farmers living near Quebec City. But they are ill-treated. When a traveller, Mr. Bruno, stops at the farm, Amanda decides to go with him, to leave with him. Crouched at the foot of her pallet, Amanda was in the middle of throwing some clothes into an old jute bag. "Don't leave me here all alone," shouted Fanette in tears. "I promise that I'll come back to get you, on Mammy's head." Fanette shook her head, her cheeks soaked in tears. Amanda wiped her nose with her sleeve. "Fanette, try to understand. Jean Bruno's my only hope. I must leave. Jacques' wicked. He hurt me, and I'm afraid that he'll start up again." "What did he do to you?" asked Fanette. "You're too young to understand." "Older people always say that," shouted Fanette disconsolately. Amanda closed her eyes. She wanted with all her soul to take Fanette with her, but Pauline Cloutier was against it, and Jean Bruno refused to take Fanette with him against the will of the farmer's wife. She took her little sister by the shoulders. "I will come back for you, Fanette, I swear." Fanette looked at her without uttering a word, her eyes red because she had cried so much. Amanda wanted to give their mother's pendant as proof she would return, but Fanette refused to take it. Amanda heard the neighing of a horse. She stood back up, glanced at the skylight, and saw Mr. Bruno tightening the harness. She turned to her little sister. "Fionnuala, I must leave now." Her bag across her shoulder, Amanda climbed down the ladder. In her hurry, she forgot that one of the rungs was missing and lost her footing. She fell to the floor, but managed to cushion the impact with her 2 hands. She got back up carefully, then climbed down the stairs leading to the kitchen. Seeing Jacques' large frame standing in front of the main door, she tried not to appear startled. She felt her pulse in her temples throb and made an effort not to cave into fear. "Let me leave," she managed to articulate in a stern voice. Jacques stared at her in silence, his face undecipherable. Then, after what seemed to Amanda like an eternity, he stepped aside, leaving her just enough space to pass. She moved forward, trying not to touch him, but had to brush against him while opening the door. He put a hand on the frame, preventing Amanda from crossing the threshold. "We will see each other again," he murmured. "Not during my lifetime," retorted Amanda. There was such strength in her eyes that he moved back. She walked out, her head held high, and headed toward Jean Bruno's sleigh, trying hard not to run. He was relieved to see her. "It's about time," he said, a little nervous. He grabbed Amanda's bag that was still slung across her shoulders. "Is that all you have? It's featherweight." "Let's go," she said, panic in her voice. Jean Bruno looked at her, struck by her tone, then instinctively turned his head towards the farmhouse hall door. Jacques was planted in front of the door that he had left open, his eyes riveted on them, sombre looking. The merchant hurriedly placed Amanda's small bag on the seat and helped the young woman in beside it, covering her with a fur. He sat down beside her and shook the reins, and with only one thought on his mind, to leave the place as quickly as possible. "Gee up! Gee up!" As the sleigh moved away, Amanda looked back and saw Fanette, her nose glued to the attic skylight. She was about to shout to Jean Bruno to stop and let her dismount, but the vision of Jacques standing on the doorstep prevented her. Standing in front of the skylight, Fanette watched the sleigh disappear down the snowy road under a white-striped buttery sky, carrying with it all that remained of her family.
Amanda, accroupie au pied de son grabat, était en train de jeter quelques vêtements dans un vieux sac en jute. « Laisse-moi pas toute seule ici » s'écria Fanette en pleurs. « Je te promets que je vais revenir te chercher sur la tête de maman. » Fanette secoua la tête, les joues mouillées de larmes. Amanda lui essuya le nez avec sa manche. « Fanette, essaie de comprendre. Jean Bruno est ma seule chance de sortir d'ici. Jacques est méchant, il m'a fait du mal et j'ai peur qu'il recommence. »« Qu'est-ce qu'il t'a fait » demanda Fanette. « T'es trop petite pour comprendre. »« Les grandes personnes disent toujours ça » s'écria Fanette dépitée. Amanda ferma les yeux. Elle désirait de toute son âme l'emmener avec elle, mais Pauline Cloutier s'y opposait et Jean Bruno refusait de prendre Fanette avec lui contre la volonté de la fermière. Elle prit sa petite sœur par les épaules. « Je vais revenir te chercher, Fanette, je te le jure. » Fanette la regarda sans mot dire, les yeux presque noirs tellement elle avait pleuré. Amanda voulut lui remettre le pendentif de leur mère en gage de son retour, mais Fanette refusa de le prendre. Amanda entendit le hennissement d'un cheval. Elle se redressa, jeta un coup d'œil à la lucarne, vit M. Bruno qui finissait d'atteler. Elle se tourna vers sa petite sœur. « Fionnuala, je dois partir maintenant. » Amanda, son sac en bandoulière, descendit l'échelle. Elle réprima un sursaut en apercevant la grande silhouette de Jacques, debout devant la porte d'entrée. Elle sentit ses tempes battre et fit un effort pour ne pas céder à la peur. « Laisse-moi sortir » réussit-elle à articuler la voix blanche. Jacques la fixa en silence, la mine indéchiffrable. Puis, après un temps qui parut une éternité à Amanda, il se tourna de côté, lui laissant juste assez d'espace pour passer. Elle s'avança, essayant de ne pas le toucher, mais elle dut le frôler en ouvrant la porte. Il déposa une main sur le chambranle, empêcha Amanda de franchir le seuil. « On va se revoir, murmura-t-il. »« Pas de mon vivant, » répliqua Amanda. Il y avait une telle force dans son regard qu'il recula. Elle sortit la tête droite et se dirigea vers la voiture de Jean Bruno en s'efforçant de ne pas courir. Ce dernier fut soulagé de la voir. « C'est pas trop tôt, dit-il, un peu nerveux. » Il s'empara du sac de toile qu'Amanda portait toujours en bandoulière. « C'est tout ce que vous avez, ça pèse une plume. »« Partons, dit-elle, un début de panique dans sa voix. Jean Bruno la regarda, saisi par son ton, puis, tournant instinctivement la tête vers la porte d'entrée de la maison de ferme, Jacques était planté devant la porte, qu'il avait laissée ouverte, les yeux rivés sur eux, l'air sombre. Le négociant, s'empressant de mettre le petit bagage d'Amanda sur la banquette, puis aida la jeune femme à s'y asseoir, la couvrant d'une fourrure. Il s'installa à côté d'elle et secoua les rênes. Il n'avait qu'une hâte, quitter cet endroit au plus vite. « Udia! » Tandis que la slé s'ébranlait, Amanda leva les yeux et vit Fanette, le nez collé à la lucarne du grenier. Elle fut sur le point de crier à Jean Bruno d'arrêter, de la laisser descendre, mais la vision de Jacques debout sur le seuil de la porte l'en empêcha. Fanette, devant la lucarne, regardait la slé s'éloigner sur le chemin enneigé, sous un ciel jaune strié de blanc, emportant avec elle tout ce qui lui restait de sa famille.
So we're moving on to Volume 2 now, and Excerpt 4 is from Chapter 1 of Volume 2. It's set in Quebec City in 1858. Fanette is now 18 years old, and she's pregnant. She's very much in love with her husband Philippe, the son of the notary Grandmont, but she still suffers from her separation from Amanda. Sitting at her dressing table, Fanette put a hairpin in her chignon. Since Dr. Lantier had told her she was with child, she experienced elation mixed with a little sadness. The thought of her sister Amanda troubled her. She had not breathed a word to anyone, not even Philippe, about Father McGorn's revelations concerning the existence of Amanda's son, Ian. The secret was not hers to tell. She remembered each and every detail: the room with the whitewashed walls, the rickety chair on which she'd sat, the priest's beautiful face, prematurely aged by hard work and worrying. All I can tell you is she had a child, he told her. And the father? Unknown. Father unknown. A shiver ran down her spine, despite the oppressive heat in the room. A heat wave had prevailed for several days. According to Father McGorn, her sister's child was 9 or 10 years old. Amanda had fled the Cloutier's farm in March 1849. The same terrifying thought crossed her mind again. What if Jacques Cloutier was the father? Nausea overwhelmed her. She rushed to a mahogany washstand where Regine left a basin and a pitcher full of cold water each morning and evening, filled the basin, refreshed her face, and then sponged it with a fine batiste towel. It calmed her down. Where had Amanda and her son hidden since they'd left St. Bridget's home? Why had her sister refused to see her again, when she would have given anything to speak with her and hug her, if only for a few seconds? She felt crushed to the core. Amanda, do you really think I could judge you? You who did so much for me.
Québec, le 1er août 1858. Fanette, assise devant sa coiffeuse, replaça une épingle dans son chignon. Depuis que le docteur Lantier lui avait annoncé qu'elle attendait un enfant, elle vivait dans une sorte d'exaltation mêlée à une tristesse diffuse. La pensée de sa sœur Amanda la hantait. Elle n'avait soufflé mot à personne, pas même à Philippe, des révélations que le père McGorn lui avait faites sur l'existence d'Ian, le fils d'Amanda. Ce secret ne lui appartenait pas. Elle se souvenait de chaque détail, la pièce aux murs blanchis à la chaux, la chaise bancale sur laquelle elle était assise, le beau visage du prêtre prématurément vieilli par le labeur et les soucis. Tout ce que je peux vous dire, c'est qu'elle a eu un enfant, lui avait-il dit. Et le père, inconnu. Père inconnu. Un frisson lui parcourut l'échine, malgré la chaleur qui régnait dans la pièce. D'après le père McGorn, l'enfant de sa sœur avait 9 ou 10 ans. Amanda avait fui la ferme des Cloutiers en mars 1849. La même terrifiante pensée lui revint à l'esprit s'il fallait que le père soit Jacques Cloutier. Une nausée l'envahit. Elle se précipita vers un meuble de toilette en acajou sur lequel Madame Régine déposait soir et matin un bassin et un broc remplis d'eau fraîche et se rafraîchit le visage. Puis l'épongea avec une serviette en fine batiste. Ce geste la calma. Où Amanda et son fils s'étaient-ils réfugiés depuis leur départ de St. Bridget's Home? Pourquoi sa sœur avait-elle refusé de la revoir alors qu'elle aurait tout donné pour lui parler, la serrer dans ses bras, ne serait-ce que quelques instants? La peine lui comprima le cœur. Amanda, croyais-tu vraiment que je serais capable de te juger, toi qui as tant fait pour moi?
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man that fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroad? Did you rid the streets of crime? Your dollars from the White House, were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs taunt to cheer you, or did they still make you cry? Did you count the months, the years, or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know, says he, 'twas not to be. In a coffin ship I came here, and I never even got so far that they could change my name.
Thousands are sailing across the western ocean, the land of opportunity. Some of them will never see fortune prevailing across the western ocean. Their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the death of afternoon, we stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first man on the moon. And the blackbird broke the silence as you whistled it so sweet. And in Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. Give a good night to Broadway, give it our best regards. And we tipped our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favorite bar. And we raised a glass to JFK and a dozen more besides. When I got back to my empty room, I suppose I must have cried. Thousands are sailing again across the ocean to the hand of opportunity. Some of them will never see. There we go, we celebrate the land that makes us refugees from fear of priests with empty plates, from guilt and weeping effigies. And we'll dance to the music and we'll dance. And we'll dance to the music and we'll dance. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean, the land of opportunity. Some of them will never see postcards they're mailing, sky blue skies and oceans, from rooms the daylight never sees, where lights don't glow on Christmas trees. And they'll dance to the music and they'll dance.
So, Chapter 2, Volume 2, 9 years earlier, March 1849. Mr. Bruno is brutally murdered by a mysterious horseman. Terrified, Amanda runs away, but she gets lost in the woods. Amanda slowly regained consciousness. First, she saw the moon, veiled by clouds. A few stars twinkled far away. A freezing cold wind blew through the trees. Where am I? She tried to move, but her limbs were numb with the cold. She felt a searing pain in her right side near her lung, then turned her head slowly and thought she saw a large dark stain in the snow. She realized it was probably blood. Her blood. A gust of wind blew powdered snow about her and seemed to bring her back to her lightest memories. She remembered Mr. Bruno, the tinkling of bells, the dull sound of the horses' hooves on the snowy road, the flickering light of the carriage lamps. A howl roused Amanda from her torpor. Another howl rang out, making her blood run cold. Wolves! The howling seemed to be getting closer. Amanda gained control of her mind bit by bit. I need to get out of here. She tried to get up, but it was as if an invisible hand was impeding any movement. She thought she detected some furtive rustling not far from her. Make an effort. Get up. She managed to turn over onto her side. A sharp pain seared through her. She breathed with difficulty. Some sort of whistling emanated from her throat. Howls could be heard again. Fear galvanized her. She got on her knees, leaning on branches of a shrub, and managed to stand up. She was so paralyzed by the cold she could barely stay upright. She looked around to find her bearings. To her left, she saw stealthy shadows bordering the screen of pine trees, whose branches stretched out as far as the eye could see. A pack of about 5 wolves was heading her way. Get out of here, quick! A white field stretched out before her as far as she could see. She tried to take a first step, then another. Her feet were frigid, and she couldn't feel them any longer. The snow scrunched beneath her feet. The excruciating, stabbing pain in her right side persisted. Suddenly, she thought she saw a light flicker on the horizon, the same light she had seen before tripping and losing consciousness. Hopefully it's a house. She heard almost human-sounding shrieks and instinctively turned round. The pack of wolves was closing in. The hopes of finding a house and fear of the wolves made her pick up a little speed. Just then, a shadow stood before her. The black silhouette of a man of great stature stood out against the sky. The moon was once again hidden behind clouds, and she could make out his facial features, but she knew it was him. She slumped onto the snow. My Lord, have pity on me, she murmured once again, sinking into dreamless darkness.
9 ans auparavant, près du village de la Chevrotière, le 15 mars 1849. Amanda reprit lentement connaissance. Elle vit d'abord la lune, voilée par des nuages. Quelques étoiles s'allumaient et s'éteignaient de loin en loin. Un vent glacial sifflait dans les arbres. Où suis-je? Elle tenta de bouger, mais ses membres étaient engourdis par le froid. Elle sentit une douleur diffuse sur le côté droit, près du poumon, tourna doucement la tête et crut apercevoir une large tache sombre sur la neige. Elle se rendit compte que c'était probablement du sang, son sang. Une rafale souffla, faisant tourbillonner de la poudrerie autour d'elle. Comme si le vent avait ramené ses souvenirs, elle se rappela la slée de M. Bruno, le tintement des clochettes, le bruit mat des sabots sur le chemin enneigé, la lueur vacillante des fanaux. Un hurlement sortit Amanda de sa torpeur. Un autre hurlement retentit, lui glaçant les veines. Des loups. Les hurlements semblaient s'approcher. Amanda reprit peu à peu ses esprits. « Il faut que je parte d'ici. » Elle fit un effort pour se lever, mais c'était comme si une main invisible l'empêchait de se mouvoir. Elle crut discerner un bruissement furtif non loin d'elle. « Fais un effort, lève-toi. » Elle réussit à se tourner sur le côté. Une douleur aiguë la transperça. Elle respirait avec effort. Une sorte de sifflement sortait de sa gorge. Des hurlements s'élevèrent à nouveau. La peur la galvanisait. Elle se mit sur les genoux, puis s'accrochant aux branches d'un arbrisseau, réussit à se relever. Elle tenait à peine sur ses jambes tellement elles étaient paralysées par le froid. Elle regarda autour d'elle pour s'orienter. À sa gauche, elle aperçut des ombres furtives longeant un rideau de sapin dont les branches ployaient sous la neige. Une meute d'environ 5 clous se dirigeait vers elle. « Va-t'en d'ici, vite !» Devant elle, un champ blanc s'étendait à perte de vue. Elle tenta un premier pas, puis un autre. Ses pieds étaient gelés, elle ne les sentait plus. La neige craquait sous ses pas. La douleur lancinante à son côté droit ne la quittait pas. Soudain, elle crut voir une lumière trembloter à l'horizon, la même lumière qu'elle avait vue avant de trébucher et de perdre connaissance, pourvu que ce soit une maison. Elle entendit des cris qui avaient une consonance presque humaine. Elle se retourna, la meute s'approchait. L'espoir de trouver une maison et la crainte des loups la firent marcher un peu plus vite. C'est alors qu'une ombre se dressa devant elle. Un homme de grande taille dont la silhouette noire se découpait sur le ciel. La lune était à nouveau cachée par des nuages. Elle ne distinguait pas les traits du visage, mais elle sut que c'était lui. Elle s'affala dans la neige. « Mon Dieu, ayez pitié de moi », murmura-t-elle avant de sombrer encore une fois dans une nuit noire et sans rêve.
We're now at chapter 25, and it's June 1858 in Quebec. Amanda, having been saved by a young couple of farmers, has to go because she's pregnant. She ends up in Quebec City, penniless, with a baby, and has to beg in the streets in order to survive. Amanda and her son Ian are hosted by Mrs. Bergevin, a kind-looking woman. But Mrs. Bergevin is the owner of a brothel. Ian, what would you say if we left here? Her son stared at her wide-eyed and thoughtful. To go to Ireland? Perhaps. His eyes lit up. We're going to see Daddy? 8 years had passed since Mrs. Bergevin had told her about Jacques Cloutier's escape. The man had become a shadow whose menace had faded with the years. Get dressed. She stood up and strode around the bedroom, trying to sort her thoughts. She didn't yet know if she'd have the courage to answer Fanette's ad, but the fact that her sister wanted to see her had spurred her into action. She had to leave this brothel with Ian. no matter what awaited them. Firm in her resolve, she rummaged in her hidey-hole under the mattress and took out her meagre savings, including the $1 Mr. Gordon had given her the evening before. She put on a grey taffeta dress. Her other costumes were too garish. They would immediately betray her occupation. She gathered together her son's clothes and piled them into a canvas bag. Amanda went downstairs, followed by Ian. For the first time in a long time, she felt an excitement that resembled happiness. She would never again go up these stairs. Never again feel the client's greedy hands on her or endure their fixed and joyless stare. Never again. These words resonated in her like music. She crossed the drawing room, squeezing Ian's hand. The large room was plunged in semi-darkness, contrasting with the bright lights which reigned there in the evenings. She turned the door handle. "You'll be back." Amanda briskly turned around. Mrs. Bergevin was standing in the middle of the empty room. "Never!" cried Amanda. The owner sneered. "My girls always come back. You'll see." Amanda quickly opened the door. A fresh breeze hit her. She breathed in deeply, her grey eyes raised to the sky. Freedom, at last.
Ian, qu'est-ce que tu dirais qu'on parte d'ici? Son fils la regarda avec ses grands yeux pensifs. Pour aller en Irlande? Peut-être. Les yeux de l'enfant se mirent à briller. On va rejoindre papa. 8 années s'étaient écoulées depuis que Mme Bergevin avait appris la fuite de Jacques Cloutier. Il était devenu une sorte d'ombre dont la menace était estompée au fil des ans. « Habille-toi !» Elle se releva, fit quelques pas dans la chambrette, tâchant de mettre de l'ordre dans ses idées. Elle ne savait pas encore si elle aurait le courage de répondre à l'annonce de Fanette, mais le fait que sa sœur veuille la revoir lui avait donné un choc salutaire. Il fallait qu'elle quitte la maison close. Peu importait ce qui les attendait, Ian et elle. Forte de cette résolution, elle fouilla dans sa cachette sous le matelas et y prit ses maigres économies, dont le $1 que M. Gordon lui avait donné la veille. Elle revêtit une robe en taffetas gris. Ses autres tenues étaient trop voyantes. Elle trahirait tout de suite son statut. Elle rassembla les vêtements de son fils et les entassa dans un sac de toile. Amanda, suivie d'Ian, descendit l'escalier. Pour la première fois depuis longtemps, elle éprouvait une fébrilité qui ressemblait presque au bonheur. Jamais plus elle ne remonterait ses marches. Jamais plus elle ne sentirait les mains avides des clients sur elle, le regard fixe et sans joie. Jamais plus. Ces mots résonnaient dans sa tête comme une musique. Elle traversa le salon, tenant la main d'Ian serrée dans la sienne. La grande pièce était plongée dans une demi-obscurité qui contrastait avec les lumières vives qui y régnaient le soir. Elle fit tourner la poignée de la porte. « Tu reviendras. » Amanda se retourna vivement. Madame Bergevin se tenait debout au milieu du salon vide. « Jamais !» s'écria Amanda. Madame Bergevin ricana. « Mes filles reviennent toujours, tu verras. » Amanda s'empressa d'ouvrir la porte. Une brise fraîche l'accueillit. Elle respira l'air de tous ses poumons, ses yeux gris levés vers le ciel. Enfin, la liberté.
In the merry month of June, from me home I left the girls at home, really broken and sweet. And father dear, kissed me darling, mother drank a pint of beer. Me grief and tears, his mother the knocked with the corn. Leave her I was born, the storm the corn and man is coast. The guns are run, you pair of rope. Then all the bones pricked and all the dogs on the rocky roads a Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hear him turning down the rocky road and all the way to Dublin, for all the and God that night and the students away. We started biting line, exponent light that early. The jump of the fjord, singing, that's the punish girl. Whenever he's on the ring, you see lassie smile, sing all the while. The geared man was such she heard, the bubbling up was the higher. Queens are required, the nearly tired on the rocky road to Dublin, the dream of life. The here and turning down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin for all the next survived, I thought to touch a pity to be so soon deprived of you. That Quebec City, so then I took a stroll all along the Colony bundle. It was stole among them. Legality, something crossed my mind. When I looked behind my bundle, could I find upon me street? Oh, I'm thinking, Barry, for the road, they sent me kind of road. Was it much ago on the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To here and turning down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, rock for all the away, was never fain in London on the quay, just as the ship was in the captain up me roared. The boardroom hardy when I jumped aboard a cabin, but everybody down among the people. It's a funny rig, that's the hardy jingle once around me bubbling when the party had. I wish myself was there, the forest dead on the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To here and turn her down the rocky road and all the way to Dublin, right for all the to boil, for I was losing cold there and I leaving and abusing a wrong resources I'm sure in the end of life. And all we boys were 9 and 5, hobbling up the louder way, we joined in the affray. We cleared the way for the rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The here and turn her down the rocky road and all the way to Dublin, mark along the road.
Last passage is the new book of Fanette, La Suite. Fanette is 38 years old, and she became a journalist. It was a dream of hers, but she has difficulty with money, and because she's a woman, things don't work so much as they should. So, on est en 1878. Fanette a 38 ans. Elle est devenue journaliste. Elle a donc réalisé son rêve, mais elle a des difficultés financières et elle doit rencontrer un directeur de banque pour faire un emprunt. On est au 19e siècle.
When Mr. Duverger had finished his lesson and left, Fanette asked their groom, Mr. Sylvain, to hitch the phaeton and made her way to the bank located on Saint-Jacques Street. The carriage glided easily through the snow, speckled with orange patches from the sun. Passers-by struggled along the frozen pavement, while children gathered in the schoolyard, threw snowballs at each other. Fanette joyfully breathed in the cold, crisp air. Unlike the bulk of Quebec residents, she loved winter, the spotless snow covering the roofs and the trees, accentuating the azure sky. Her conversation with Mr. Duverger had invigorated her. Before leaving, the teacher had said that the music competition would take place in September, which would give them a few months' break before speaking again about Marie Rosalie's travel plans for Paris. Fanette felt that it all boded well and that her meeting with the bank manager would unfold as she hoped it would. The coach came to a halt in front of a stately building, flanked by Doric columns and stone lions whose maws revealed menacing fangs as if to warn clients that a sad fate awaited them if, by ill fortune, they did not repay their debts. The name of the bank was engraved on the pediment, Bank of Montreal. Inside, at the far end of a large room, A counter of wooden wicket tellers stood on a gleaming black and white marble tiled floor. Some ferns were laid out beneath high windows that let in an ochre light. A young man who looked like a subordinate approached her. "How can I help you?" he asked with a thin smile plastered on his smooth face. "I have an appointment with Mr. Walsh." "Whom shall I announce?" Fanette controlled her irritation. She hated this excessive politeness, which she considered to be condescending. "Mrs. Fanette Vanier." The young man's face lit up. "Ah, you are Julien Vanier's wife. An exceptional client." Fanette's annoyance rose a notch. So, in the eyes of this clerk, only the identity of her husband mattered. "I am a client in my own right," she snapped coldly. He cocked an eyebrow, then escorted Fanette to an office with a window where the name of the manager was stenciled in Gothic letters on the door. A strong smell of cigar caught Fanette's throat. A corpulent man with wide and greying sideburns made to reach out his hand, then changed his mind, definitely remembering that it was inappropriate to shake a lady's hand. "Please be seated, Mrs. Vanier." No sooner was she seated than she broached the reason for her visit. The manager looked at her indifferently. Why do you need such a sum?" he asked her in broken French. "I wish to pay off some debts in order to relaunch my newspaper." He shot her a dubious look. "What kind of debts?" "Expenses such as paper, ink, postage, not to mention manpower." "How many subscribers do you have?" "I had about 3,000. And now?" She was certainly expecting this question, but replied carefully, knowing that it would be detrimental to her cause. "Fewer than 1,000. He asked her what caused such a significant reduction. This time she argued with confidence. "I had to reduce the number of issues because of the increase in expenses. However, the fewer the issues, the fewer the readers. To build reader loyalty, it is vitally important to publish the newspaper regularly." The manager took a pen and twirled it between his fingers. "Can you guarantee that there will be an increase in the number of your subscribers?" "I can't guarantee that 100%, but," he cut her short abruptly. "In that case, I'm afraid I cannot extend the loan to you, Fanette." Fanette lost her temper. "Mr. Walsh, what trade could offer you a full guarantee?" The manager put the pen back in its holder. He coldly responded that some businesses were less risky than others, and that his work involved calculating those risks. He picked up his cigar from the ashtray and took a long puff. A swirl of white smoke rose into the already low air quality in the confined room. "However, if your husband were willing to secure your loan..." Fanette looked at him without blinking an eyelid. "This concerns my newspaper. I do not wish to involve my husband in my business." She stood up. "One day, women will be able to get a loan without their husband's backing." "Yes, and they'll be able to vote," retorted Walsh wryly. She left the room, keeping her tears in check. One day, women would refrain from crying when angry. They would no longer depend on their husbands for a loan because they would have their own bank account. One day, women would have the right to vote and would be the authors of their own destiny. One day.
La voiture s'immobilisa devant un édifice majestueux flanqué de colonnes doriques et de lions de pierre, dont la gueule laissait entrevoir des crocs qui se voulaient menaçants, comme pour avertir les clients qu'un triste sort les attendait si, par malheur, ils ne remboursaient pas leurs dettes. Le nom de la banque était gravé sur le fronton, Bank of Montreal. Please sit down, Mrs. Vanier. Aussitôt assise, elle aborda la raison de sa visite. Le directeur arborait un visage neutre. Pourquoi vous avoir besoin de cette somme, lui demanda-t-il dans un français approximatif. Je souhaite éponger quelques dettes afin de relancer mon journal. Il lui jeta un regard dubitatif. What kind of debts? des frais de papier, d'encre, de poste, sans compter la main-d'œuvre. How many subscribers do you have? Combien d'abonnés? My English accent is not in French, is that so great? J'en avais près de 3000. And now? Elle s'attendait bien sûr à cette question, mais répondit avec réticence, sachant que cela nuirait à sa cause. Un peu moins de 1000. Il lui demanda à quoi elle attribuait une baisse aussi importante. Cette fois, elle argumenta avec aplomb. J'ai dû diminuer le nombre de parutions justement à cause de la hausse des frais. Moins il y a de parutions, moins il y a de lecteurs. Pour fidéliser le lectorat, il est vital de faire paraître mon journal avec régularité. Le directeur saisit une plume et la fit tourner entre ses doigts. Can you guarantee that the number of your subscribers will, que le nombre de vos abonnés va augmenter? Je ne peux pas le garantir à 100%, mais il la coupa sèchement. In that case, I'm afraid I cannot. Je ne peux pas vous faire ce prêt. Fanette sentit la moutarde lui monter au nez. Monsieur Walsh, quel commerce peut vous offrir une garantie absolue? Le directeur remit la plume sur son socle. Il lui répondit froidement qu'il y avait des commerces moins risqués que d'autres et que son travail consistait justement à calculer ses risques. Il souleva son cigare qu'il avait déposé dans un cendrier et prit une longue bouffée. Une volute de fumée bleue s'éleva dans l'air déjà confiné de la pièce. However, if your husband were willing to secure your loan, Fanette regarda le directeur sans ciller. Il venait tout bonnement lui faire entendre qu'il serait disposé à lui octroyer le prêt si son mari s'en portait garant. Il s'agit de mon journal. Je ne souhaite pas mêler mon mari à mes affaires. Elle se leva. Un jour, les femmes pourront emprunter de l'argent sans le soutien de leur époux. Oui, et elles auront le droit de vote, répliqua Walsh, ironique. Fanette sortit de la pièce, jugulant des larmes de colère. Un jour, les femmes cesseraient de pleurer lorsqu'elles sont en colère. Elles ne dépendraient plus de leur mari pour obtenir un prêt, car elles auraient leur propre compte en banque. Un jour, les femmes auraient le droit de vote et pourraient avoir une prise sur leur destinée. Un jour.
Alors, merci infiniment, Suzanne et Martina et nos deux musiciens pour cette présentation magnifique, bilingue, vraiment dans l'esprit de communauté, dans l'esprit de Bloomsday. Notre mission, c'est la culture irlandaise à Montréal et je pense qu'on a vraiment pleinement l'exprimé aujourd'hui avec ce magnifique saga de Fanette que j'ai vraiment hâte de lire au complet. Évidemment, ma table de chevet est assez... le pile sur ma table de chevet est déjà assez haute, mais je pense que je vais en tasser quelques-uns. Thank you so much, Martina and Suzanne and our wonderful musicians, for this fabulous reading, which really is in the spirit of Bloomsday Montreal, which is to represent the Irish culture here in Montreal, Irish culture in Montreal and Quebec. And I think we couldn't have found a better example than to read in English and French and a bit of Irish this wonderful saga, this historic romance. And as we find out, thank God, we read this last little section, Fanette ends up at least in the middle class. So, you know, she does okay. And that's really great. So I wanted to thank you so much for this and to say that we're going to take a break and for 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to have a discussion. And I hope that everybody who's watching on Instagram through Geraldina's efforts and on our YouTube, if you want to type in some questions or whatever, I don't think we can actually have you speak aloud. I don't think technology allows for that. But we will certainly be watching for your questions and comments, and we'll be able to communicate them to everybody. And so that's what we're going to do in the next little bit. Is there anything else? Of course I came. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I was thinking, and then I forget. I don't know. Does anybody else have a brain like that? As I was listening to your description of the bank, Suzanne, and of course in English from Martina, she described the maw of the bank. I was thinking of that incredible short story of Stephen Leacock, a wonderful Canadian humorist, worth digging into once you've completed the 9 volumes of Fanette. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in 15, 20 minutes. Everybody's going to have a drink, and I hope those of you at home will also find a little bit of refreshment. Thank you.
thank you very much, everybody. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Tout d'abord, on aimerait ça vous souhaiter un très, très, très bon Saint-Jean. C'était hier, là, mais en tout cas, nous autres ici au Québec...
By the Julian calendar, it's tonight.
By the Julian calendar, it's tonight, and it's all weekend long, and actually it's all month, and the next month too. So not only that, but the Montreal Canadiens are in the finals of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, it feels like 1989 all over again.
And we're all very happy about that. We would like to encourage anybody who happens to be celebrating the good fortune and great skill of the Montreal Canadiens to please be responsible socially and don't wreck things, okay? We won, it's great, we're celebrating. It doesn't mean you should loot stuff, okay? Just a wee word of the opinion of the band is that. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're very, very happy to be here. We're called the Swindlers, and I'm just going to take a second and introduce the members of the band to you in case you don't know who they are. Over here playing the bouzouki and singing leads is Mr. Sean Dager.
Hello.
Over there on the bouzouki.
Hello.
This gentleman here on the bass is none other than Bill Gossage himself, ladies and gentlemen.
The Bill Gossage.
The Bill Gossage.
Thank you.
And the man keeping it all together in the back, this is Thierry Arsenault on the percussion.
And on the fiddle, and looking so good always, Mr. Jonathan Mormon. Give it up for Johnny.
Very much. I'm pretty happy about my hat. I think the hat is, it's the best part of me
Show
right
us
now.
your leg kick, Johnny. That's the best part of you, for real.
So here at the Wheel Club on this beautiful Friday evening, we have a couple of special announcements to make. First of all, and most importantly, this is an actual real live show. Like some of the shows that we've done since the beginning of the pandemic, they get advertised as being live, but they're sort of almost live. They're kind of like pre-recorded and not exactly live. But this one is really exactly live. So anytime we fuck up or swear by mistake on stage, it's really live. So sorry about that. But even more importantly than that, we'd just like to thank once again the crew here at the Wheel Club for not only are they doing an amazing job putting on these shows and doing sound, lights, video, and everything for us, but they're also a fantastic bunch of people who are doing their absolute best to keep live music alive during this time when it's so very, very difficult to do so. So ladies and gentlemen, that's Ed on the sound, Kevin doing lots of stuff, Cliff, the absolute boss of the whole thing, who's unbelievable, Etienne, who's doing all the other stuff that everybody else doesn't want to do, and our new friend Rick, who's also part of the team, who's very, very welcome and very, very happy to have all of these guys here with us. So if you're sitting at home in front of your laptops and you feel like giving them a cheers and a shout out, this is the Wheel Club. You can see their logo here. They're doing an incredible job. And also helping to keep musicians like us out of trouble and playing music. So here's a song that we'd like to do for you guys. It's a new one. We just kind of learned this and put it together. It's a song in Old Occitan. Is that? Do I have it right?
Yeah.
So if you don't understand the words, it doesn't mean you're drunk. I mean, it might mean that you're drunk, but it probably more likely means that it's in a language that has not been in popular usage for a couple of centuries. It's called A l'entrada del temps clar. Temps clar. And it goes like this.
E per giallo si ritarda, bachelor, get with nothing when that's art in London's enjoyable. Alla vie, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos. Alla vie, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos. Gioiosa, alla via, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos. Alla via, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos. Met preneen over far, Kjellene svunna viejar, Men dun ledger bachelor, Even such a solizar, la donne som forråde. Alla via, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos. Alla via, da los, lasos nos, bailar entre nos, entre nos.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a la entrada. All right, here's an old Irish song that we learned from a band called the Pogues. This is a great drinking song. It's called Sally MacLennan, and we haven't played this one for a very long time. We're going to give it a try now. Hopefully it doesn't go too badly. Here we go, Sally MacLennan by the Pogues. Here we go.
Harmonica in the pub where I was born. They played it in the night time with a peaceful early morn. He soothed the souls of sangos and the men and the horn. Even the God knows in the morning. They took the hum and played them but I wanted to see them. I talked to horse and horses and the men rocked the brown. I heard them say that Jimmy was making money far away. He took the road for God knows in the morning. We walked him to the station in the rain. And as we put him on the train, we sang him a song, a time long gone, but we knew that we'd be seeing him again. So sad to say I must be on my way to buy me beer and whiskey till I'm going far away. I'd like to think I'll be returning when I can to the greatest little boozer and the Sally MacLennan. By the times that changed, I grew to be a man. I learned to love the virtues of Sue Sally MacLennan. I took the pump and drained the pump and I watered the ski down. Off the horses in the morning. I took the hump and I played the pump and I watered the ski down. I took the horses and the men dragged the brown. I heard them say that Jimmy is making money far away. Some people left for heaven in the morning. Here we go. We walked into the station in the rain. We kissed him as we put him on the train, We sang him a song, a time long gone, so we knew that we'd be seeing him again. So sad to say I must be on my way to buy me beer and whiskey till I'm going far away. I like to think I'll be returning when I can to the greatest little boozer and the Sally MacLennan. When Jimmy came back home, he was surprisingly fun. He asked me all the details of the train that they were on. Some people they are scared to crow, but Jimmy drank until he choked. Took the road for God knows in the morning. Here we go.
We walked into the station in the rain. We kissed him as we put him on the train. We sang him a song, a time long gone, so we knew that we'd be seeing him again. So sad to say I must be on my way to buy me beer and whiskey, 'cause I'm going far away. I'd like to think I'll be returning when I can to the greatest little boozer in the sunny Eckleman. Ladies and gentlemen, a song by the Pogues. All right, so we found our set list. It was buried somewhere deep in Google Drive on my phone. Just goes to show you that, when all is said and done, don't trust technology at all. You may be watching this on a live internet feed, but believe me. Okay, so the next song that we're going to do is, let's see, where our set list is all buggered up now, but we're going to do a song by a band from Newfoundland. It's not really by them, but they kind of made it popular, and this band was called Great Big Sea. They were a great, amazing, awesome folk band from St. John's, Newfoundland, and they did a lot of great songs, and what they, the coolest thing that they did is that they took a lot of traditional Irish, Scottish, and even Canadian music, and they kind of brought it into public consciousness in a way that was very endearing and very, it was just a very sort of a fantastic way of bringing traditional music into people's lives. And this is one of their songs that they did. It's an old Scottish song called Mary Mac, and it goes like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a little lass and her name is Mary Mac. Make them say she's a girl and she doesn't know fellas to get her back. Cause you know I can help her get up her knee. Mary Mac's music, Mary Mac, marry me. My mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Gonna marry man with a amazing journey. Well, I'm getting married with a Mary Mac. Oh, Mary and her mother are not really good crack. You're listening to one of the other people of last. She's Mary mother, the woman together and courting. Cause Mary Mac's music, Mary Mac, marry me. My mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Gonna marry man with a amazing journey. Well, I'm getting married with a Mary Mac. Be a fucking if ever been there, and I'll be a burger, but don't give me sash, don't be very much mistaken. Cause Mary Mac's music and Mary Mac, marry me. My mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Got a Mary there with a Mary, she got me. I'm getting married with a Mary Mac. Hi, well, he says me when it does, he wants to spend the day up on the heather, his up on the fair, all the boys and girls are making us afraid. Up on the heather, his up on the fair, cause Mary Mac's music and Mary Mac, marry me. My mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Got a Mary there with a Mary, she got me. I'm getting married with a Mary Mac.
sister, get her back from the river, have to get up for again. Make merry, make it merry, make merry, my mother's making me merry, merry, back when I get up, merry, 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 I'm getting merry, when I'm merry. Her name is Mary McDonald. Some girl and gonna say, get her get on your back from the river, how to get up for again. Mary, 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 my mother's making me merry, merry, back when I get up, merry, 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 when I'm merry.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, studio audience. Thank you. All right.
Good thing there's the applause light so they know when to clap and when to laugh at your jokes.
That's not. Okay, so moving right along. We have another really important announcement to make to you at home listening audience, which is kind of something that's actually very, very exciting in the life of our band at the moment, which is that here at the Wheel Club, one of the coolest things that they are doing alongside the promotion and continual making happen of live music is that they're starting their own record label. And it's going to be called Wheel Records, which is an awesome name, and unbelievable that nobody didn't think of it before. But it's called Wheel Records, and we're extremely excited to announce that we are partnering with Wheel Records, and we're going to be doing our second album here at the Wheel Club, recorded live sometime a little bit later on this year. It's super, super, super exciting for us. We're extremely grateful to Cliff and the gang for having enough faith in our band to enter into this partnership with us. It's very, very exciting. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's cool because we've been wanting to come out with our second album for quite a long time. And it just sort of happened at exactly the right time. And this is one of the songs that we're going to record on the album. It's kind of a neat old French song. Maybe I'll let you introduce this one, Sean.
It's by a guy called Gabriel Bataille from the 16th century, and it's called Qui veut chasser une migraine? So it's basically an instruction manual for how to get rid of your hangover from the 16th century. So the main points are drink more. And make sure you have good food. Those are the
pretty much the secret to a happy life, I think.
And then the second verse they talk about. In the second verse, it talks about if you drink a lot, you will sound educated without being educated, and you will sound wise without having lived. So,
are you sure that you didn't write this song?
I'm good at not being wise, but not good at sounding wise.
And all right. So again, this is a song that we haven't ever actually performed live before, so there's a very good chance that we'll screw it up pretty badly. But I think it's okay. I think we're comfortable taking that chance, and we're going to give it a try. Here we go. Okay, so after the second verse is the up to the A and the melody. Okay, yeah, we get that. Okay. Qui veut chasser une migraine? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Qui veut chasser une migraine n'a qu'à de boire toujours du vent et maintenir sa table bien pleine de cervelas et de jambon. L'eau ne fait rien que pourrir le poumon. Bouton compagnon, viens nous se baigne et nous le remplirons. S'en rend ici, bon garçon, lui fait discourir sans grammaire et lui rend savance